the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians deserve affordable groceries. Last week, I asked the Prime Minister, why does Canada have the worst food inflation of all G7 countries? Why do grocery prices in Canada rise faster than they do in all other G7 countries? The Prime Minister answered that it's because of our weak dollar. Well, he's accountable for our dollar. How did he make the dollar weak? Was it by doubling our deficit? Was it by keeping all anti-development legislation in place? Blocking industry, blocking exports? Why is our dollar weak and why are groceries so expensive? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our currency has been increasing. Our dollar has been increasing since this government was elected. That's my first point. Second point, we have an economic plan. Our government's plan will invest in Canada. We will make Canada an energy superpower. We are finding new partnerships around the world.
Leader of the Opposition.
Encore des beaux slogans,
Lovely slogans, yet again, Mr. Speaker, but that wasn't an answer. I can always admire a good slogan, but here's the truth. He said himself that the dollar is weak, and he's the one who cannot explain why that is so. He cannot explain why, after 1 year in office for him, food inflation has doubled. And we have the fastest rising grocery prices in the G7. So, once again, I ask the question, why do Canadians have the fastest rising grocery prices in the G7? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, here is a little bit of Economy 101 for the opposition leader. There's a bit of a lag, and in fact, the party across the way engaged in so much obstruction during the last parliament that now there's an effect of that. But now growth is on the rise, salaries are rising, we're creating jobs.
Now he's claiming that it's the official opposition that lowered the dollar, Mr. Speaker. Another excuse from a man whose results do not live up to his rhetoric. The same is true on crime. After 10 years of Liberals, extortion is up 333% because of lax Liberal laws and immigration. And now Liberals are obstructing a solution. Today we're proposing a motion to ensure that no one accused or convicted of a crime can claim refugee status. Will the Prime Minister stop obstructing this motion so we can kick extortionists out and bring safety to our streets?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad the Leader of the Opposition brought up obstruction. It is the obstruction of the Opposition which is delaying the 6 bills before the House and Senate that will address extortion, that will tighten bail, that will tighten sentencing against extortion, and very importantly, consistent with every major police force in this country, consistent with the mayor of the large cities, which introduced lawful access, which they've consistently stopped in favour of extortion.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's blocking his own bills and failing to move ahead because Liberals do not want to repeal Liberal bail, Liberal house arrest, and Liberal immigration. Well, we have a motion before the House of Commons today, and it would, A, bar non-citizens convicted of a serious offence from claiming refugee status. B, bar the same people who have been charged from claiming refugee status. And C, stop judges from giving sentencing discounts to people because they are from abroad. Which of these 3 things does the Prime Minister oppose? And if it's none, why obstruct?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this side of the House supports taking control over immigration, which is why asylum seekers are down 50%.
That's right.
Which is why temporary foreign workers are down 50%, which is why students and temporary residents are down by over 50%. First point. Second point, this side of the House supports tightening sentencing, tightening bail for violent crimes, for extortion, for sextortion. Join us.
Leader of the opposition.
And he's done none of those things. And by the way, all those numbers are up compared to when the previous Conservative government was in office. Now, on to jobs for Canadians. Our auto workers are losing their jobs in Ingersoll, in Oshawa, and elsewhere because of American tariffs. The Prime Minister is helping the U.S. take away these jobs by forcing Canadian taxpayers to spend $2.3 billion on subsidies for American and other foreign-made electric vehicles. Why not scrap this subsidy for foreign-made vehicles and take taxes off vehicles made here in Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government is investing $3 billion in Canadian automakers. We are investing not in the auto industry of the past, but the auto industry of the future. The auto industry of the future is electric. It is connected. We are building out the entire supply chain.
That's right.
And as this House will see in the coming weeks, we are building out the electricity grid with, wait for it, in the spirit of cooperative federalism with the provinces.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the auto workers are waiting for it. They're waiting for their jobs. But this Prime Minister is subsidizing electric vehicles whose sales are in full collapse and that are made outside of Canada. Imagine being an auto worker looking at high taxes on his severance after he's lost his job and knowing that billions of those dollars will be going to subsidize vehicles made in the very country that tariffed him out of work. Why doesn't he find his elbows and do the right thing for a change and actually take taxes off of Canadian-made automobiles, not subsidize foreign ones?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that if any extremities are going to be removed, it's the fingers from the ears of the Leader of the Opposition. The Leader of the Opposition could listen to the head of the Auto Manufacturing Association. He could listen to the Conservative Premier of Ontario, the heartland of Canadian auto manufacturing. He could listen to the entire sector that knows that our investments, $3 billion, our investments up the supply chain, our investments in the grid are going to drive our sector forward to the future.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister made a speech in Davos. The speech was about the hypocrisy of great major empires. Most people agreed with the basic principles of his speech, which were quite interesting. But I'd like the Prime Minister to be consistent in his speech without naming names. And in other circumstances, the Prime Minister did name names. Basically, he said that the United States was no longer the same reliable economic and military partner that they once were. Today, we found out that the government will be giving more F-35 contracts to the United States without even suspending the contract.
Premier Ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, first, some information. The sentence that the member just said was not in my speech. Second point, as for F-35s, yes, the government is making some expenditures to keep options open. That's what we need to do for our defense. It's useful for our negotiations with Americans as well. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. All right, well, I'll change my wording, and maybe the answer will have different wording too, such that I'll be able to understand it. The Prime Minister feels that the United States are no longer a reliable partner. If that is the case, then does it make sense for this government to follow up on a study that this Prime Minister himself put on hold to review? Meanwhile, the President of the United States just said that he would block a Canada-US bill just based on his mood today. How does the government feel because they're not walking their own talk? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this question gives me the opportunity to inform this Parliament about something. I had a conversation with the American President just this morning. I informed him that Canada built that bridge and paid for it, for the Gordie Howe Bridge, that is. I also told the President that we are co-owners of the bridge with the state of Michigan. At third, I told him that there were American and Canadian workers who contributed to the bridge. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, that doesn't work, Mr. Speaker. It's all well and good for Canada to say to the U.S. President, we built that bridge with you. You're now attacking the bridge. Now we're going to buy some of your planes that you will be in control of, even though you're not a good partner. Should this government not be nationalist, defend Canada as it claims to? Should they not put the contract for F-35s on hold until relations become normal again? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the situation is easy to understand. It's clear. Our government is currently reviewing the F-35 contracts. The Government of Canada has other options. There are other options which can protect Canadians and also boost our economy, especially in Quebec.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Liberal deficits and taxes drove up inflation and food bank usage. Canada has the highest food inflation in the entire G7, double the US. Canadians spend more on Liberal taxes than on all basic essentials combined. Consumer bankruptcies are rising, and bankruptcy proposals are at levels not seen since the 2008 financial crisis. When will the Liberals scrap the taxes and inflationary deficits that are driving more Canadians into bankruptcy?
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
No lessons from these Conservatives. No lessons from these Conservatives. The first thing that this government did under this Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, was to cut tax for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. They know it, Canadians know it, we know it, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're going to build this country, we're going to empower Canadians, and we will protect our sovereignty. We believe in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Believing the Liberals are helping Canadians is as ridiculous as believing the budget will balance itself. And this Prime Minister doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit, while consumer debt skyrocketed last year. Liberal deficits and taxes are forcing Canadians to borrow more, racking up their credit cards just to get by. Non-mortgage debt has exploded to $675 billion. Wow. That's why Canadians are the most indebted in the entire G7. How many more Canadians need to go broke and bankrupt before the Liberals stop driving up the cost of living?
Honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I'll have a simple answer. Move on, man. Move on, you know. That's, you know, honestly, change the QP card. I can give you some advice, Mr. Speaker. Move on. And I have good news, Mr. Speaker. I know it's only Tuesday, but Canada is forecasted to have the second fastest growth in the G7. This is under this Prime Minister, under this government, under this team, which is building Canada like never before. We will build at scale, we will build at speed, and we will build a Canada that we can all be proud of, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
These Liberals keep telling Canadians that they've never had it so good. Well, not only has food inflation doubled since this Prime Minister took office, it's now twice as high in Canada as it is in the United States. It's driving over 2 million people a month to the food banks. I guess they should just move on from that. And now we learn that more and more Canadians have been forced into bankruptcy and bankruptcy proposals. In my province of British Columbia, they're up over 10% in the last year alone. When will this government stop pushing people to the brink brink and cut the taxes and red tape that is pushing Canadians into bankruptcy.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Well, Speaker, they want to talk about taxes. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians.
They voted against it.
We cut the GST for first-time home buyers, the consumer carbon tax. Last week, we launched the groceries and essentials benefit that will put up to $1,900 in the pockets of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we're focused on affordability for Canadians. They're focused on continued obstruction.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Liberal plan isn't working. Over 2 million Canadians a month are using the food bank. The cost of groceries has skyrocketed to over $340 a week for a family of 4, and the small minority of Canadians that get that recycled rebate that he was talking about will only get $10 a week, which isn't going to keep their creditors at bay. Now bankruptcies and bankruptcy proposals are at their highest levels since the global financial crisis. So when will the Liberals finally cut taxes and red tape and stop pushing record numbers of Canadians into bankruptcy?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, from a member and his leader who supported giving the child benefit to millionaires.
That's right.
They voted against dental program, the daycare program, housing. The list goes on and on. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to focus and deliver on affordability. That party is focused in obstruction and slogans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal government, food inflation is double what it was when the Prime Minister took office and double that of the United States. Food bank use has more than doubled, and now bankruptcies are up, the highest they've been since the financial crisis, clocking in at a shocking 10.6% at British Columbia. Will the government admit that its taxes and deficits are driving Canadians into the food bank and into bankruptcy, or will it just claim that everything is fine, proving that it's totally out of touch with reality?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
You know what, Mr. Speaker, I'll bite. Let's imagine what affordability would look like under the Conservatives in British Columbia. They would cut the industrial carbon tax, and you know what would happen? Nothing, because it doesn't affect the price of groceries. And then they would follow their plan to get out of the way, aka do nothing. No national school food program, no OAS for 65 to 67, no groceries and essentials benefit. From what I've heard, all the Conservatives would offer is thoughts and prayers. Oh wait, no, they would also obstruct as they currently are.
The Honourable Member for York-Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the hubris of the Finance Minister and his response. We will not move on from the issues that are affecting Canadians.
Yeah.
How about he should take the advice of the Prime Minister and look inside himself? Fresh data from the Superintendent of Bankruptcy in this country says that prevents a very grim truth, Mr. Speaker. Bankruptcies are rising, consumer proposals are rising. Canadians can literally no longer afford this profligate Liberal government. So when will they cut the taxes, get out of the way, get rid of the industrial carbon tax, the fuel standard tax, stop obstructing our ideas? Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, our budget will deliver generational investments for the province of Ontario, and that member who's from Ontario voted against these measures in our Budget Implementation Act. Through the Build Canada Homes, we're creating thousands of affordable homes, including the Arbo Downsview project. Again, the member opposed 40% affordable homes being developed, and we will use Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, and Canadian aluminum. We're protecting Ontario's steel industry, and we're also stopping competition from foreign steel and keeping good-paying jobs in this country. That is how we build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to do that.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket Aurora.
Consumer bankruptcies are up to the highest level since the financial crisis. That's 141,000 Canadians that are losing their homes, their savings, and their sense of security. Clearly, the Liberals' Band-Aid programs are not enough to prevent bankruptcies. Canadians need long-term solutions that bring down the cost of food and housing. When will this Liberal government stop the inflationary deficits, scrap the taxes, and remove the bureaucratic roadblocks that are making life so unaffordable.
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, again, this member is also from Ontario and voted against our budget that will make generational investments. We are making investments in our economy. We're protecting our communities and empowering Canadians, and the members opposite continue to obstruct this progress. We're creating jobs in clean energy through the Darlington Nuclear Project. That is going to help support 1.2 million homes, create thousands of jobs in this country. They should stop opposing these measures so they can help support Ontarians and support Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Shefford.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, according to the government, 85,000 retirees are experiencing issues with their OAS payments because of the Curam software, in some cases for 9 months. Yesterday, we found out why it's been going on for so long. The government House Leader responded that the errors would be corrected, and I quote, "If there are mistakes, if there are any cases, well, we would know about them." Mr. Speaker, his own government says that there are 85,000 people affected, yet he is still in denial. Do you see now, Mr. Speaker, why nothing ever gets done in Ottawa?
L'honorable leader du gouvernement à la Chambre.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Il paraît qu'on a un problème.
It seems that the Bloc Québécois has a problem. They are misquoting people today. Mr. Speaker, of course we take each and every case seriously, but what I wish to reconfirm and guarantee all Canadians and Quebecers, and I'm speaking to all those who receive OAS, I'd like to inform them that we modernized our IT system, our software. If there are errors, we will of course correct them. I encourage colleagues from all parties to tell us about any cases which need to be resolved in order to help people. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, according to the government's own estimates, there are 85,000 pensioners whose payments have been affected because of Curam. That's 85,000 people who are being affected by software that has gone over budget by almost $5 billion. In Quebec City, or in Quebec, rather, province, a commission of inquiry would have been set up a long time ago. But the leader of the government thinks that everything's hunky-dory. He's practically congratulating himself because, well, if 85,000 retirees are experiencing problems, that means that all the others are doing fine. How out of touch does the government have to be to believe that causing problems for 85,000 people is no big deal?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
We are modernizing a very old system. If we had not taken action, that would have jeopardized the payments of millions of seniors. Now, there will be retroactive payments and any issues will be corrected. Once again, I encourage the member across the way to give me names of those affected, and we will be able to help them.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is out of control in this country. Small business owners are being threatened, firebombed, shot at, living in fear, and many are contemplating leaving this country. And yet the Liberal government refuses to take this crisis seriously. Some of these criminals who should be deported are now exploiting the refugee system with false claims in order to stay in Canada. Now, we tried to close these loopholes, but the Liberals continue to obstruct. Will the government support our motion to protect Canadians from dangerous non-citizens by closing this loophole and finally ending these bogus refugee claims?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we are very concerned about this issue, and therefore we're doing everything possible by bringing legislation that will tighten bail, by imposing stricter sentences. But the one bill that's been missing is C2. C2 we tabled in the House back in June, and if these Conservatives were serious about solving the problem, rather than this window covering that they brought with this motion, that essentially is moot because of C12, which already does everything they're asking for, they would approve lawful access. They would consent today to moving that bill forward. Will they allow the vote, pass the bill, and catch the criminals?
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard for 10 years of Liberal excuses and blaming others, but Canadians continue to live in fear as criminals threaten their families, their businesses, and communities. Serious non-citizen offenders are exploiting loopholes in the refugee system to stay in the country, leaving Canadians vulnerable. Will the Liberals finally work with us to pass this motion to ban these non-citizen criminals from making false refugee claims and ensure Canadians are protected from dangerous offenders who should be deported?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, yet another Conservative that probably needs to remove his fingers from the ears, because we've already solved this problem.
That's right.
In C-12, Mr. Speaker, essentially all of these criminals would not be allowed to apply for asylum. Even in the cases where we've heard in BC where they have applied for asylum, they would not have been able to had the Conservatives not obstructed and passed C-2 when we had tabled it. But because they obstructed, they've been able to make those claims. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? Good news, because it's in the Senate, and once it's passed, those claims, those cases will be cancelled.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Nicola.
Extortion is out of control in my home province of BC. Their extortion rates are up 482% since the Liberals took power. Now, the Prime Minister about 10 minutes ago said, we are tough on extortion. Mr. Speaker, perhaps somebody should remind him that the Liberals voted to repeal a mandatory jail sentence for extortion with a firearm so people could serve their sentence on house arrest. That is the opposite of being hard on extortion. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister support our common sense solution to ensure that those convicted of serious crimes cannot claim refugee status? Yes or no?
The Honourable Secretary of State for International Development.
Mr. Speaker, I find it pretty amazing that legislators on the other side don't know the legislation that's already here. You cannot claim asylum when you're charged. It gets suspended. You go to trial, you get sentenced, and you get deported. You cannot claim asylum when you are charged. That's the law, even before the legislation before the House that's going to make it more restrictive and even more onerous for those that claim extortion.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale Langley City.
Picture a city with gangs demanding protection money from small businesses, where shots are fired at homes, where families fear going out at night and people are forced to change their cars and their routines. Sounds like I'm describing a slum in the third world country, but it's my hometown of Surrey. What's worse is when these thugs are caught, they are right back on the street after claiming refugee status. Will the Liberals support our motion that those charged with or convicted of serious crimes cannot exploit the refugee system in order to stay in Canada?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, when I speak to the police chief in that jurisdiction, when I speak to the mayor in that jurisdiction, when I speak to the premier of that province, they ask, can you get them to pass C2? Can you get them lawful access? Can you get them to pass the bills in this House? They don't want this construction, Mr. Speaker. I ask you to urge the Conservatives to support these legislations so we can give the police the tools they need to prosecute and enforce the laws of this land and kick these extortionists out.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is up 330% since Liberals took office. Small business owners in places like Brampton, Surrey, Vancouver, and my home of Calgary are being threatened. Families are being shot at and firebombed. And Liberals have done nothing. Even the Premier of BC has said the Liberals must stop criminals from gaining refugee status. Will the Liberals support our motion to protect communities by ensuring convicted criminals cannot use our refugee status to stay in Canada? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
When we want to talk about the position of the Premier of British Columbia when it comes to our criminal justice reform agenda, I'd advise the honourable member that he didn't just support the legislation, he asked if he could join us for a press conference to celebrate the achievements of that legislation. But Mr. Speaker, if the member is interested in doing more to combat extortion, he can help accelerate the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, which tightens bail for violent extortion and hardens sentences for offenders. He could support the Strong Borders Act, which Patrick Brown, the Mayor of Brampton, asked me to pass a message to the Conservatives that the Peel Regional Police want lawful access in this country so they can bust extortion rings, not just punish bad actors after a crime's committed, but stop them in the first instance.
The honourable member for Longueuil Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, February 7th marked the end of the mandate of the Presidential Transitional Council in Haiti, as well as a new stage in the political transition with the transfer of power to Prime Minister Fils-Aimé. As Haitians continue to face uncertainty about their country's future and the security situation continues to deteriorate, can the Minister of Foreign Affairs tell us how Canada will continue to support the Haitian people throughout this democratic transition and security stabilization process? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, this transition is an important step toward stability in Haiti, including general elections. Canada is a global leader, and we have invested $450 million for stability in Haiti. We are working closely with the Haitian diaspora as well. We are committed to fighting for a healthier and safer future for Haitians, and I'd like to thank my colleague here in the House.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, despite the Liberal government signing on to up to $52 billion to build an electric vehicle supply chain in Canada, the wheels are falling off most of those deals, and the vast majority of EVs are built elsewhere. But now, with the Liberals are expecting Liberal Canadians to buy this or to buy into this $2.3 billion subsidy program for foreign-made EVs. Why is the Liberal government expecting working Canadians to subsidize their $2.3 billion subsidy for foreign-made EVs, including in the U.S., Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
We believe in affordability, and we believe in electrification. And we just don't understand why the Conservatives are so much against electrification at a time where in 5 years, 40% of all the cars sold worldwide will be EVs. And so we won't hold back our auto workers. We will invest in the future of the sector. We will make sure that we leapfrog what is going on in the United States, and we will create jobs across the country.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the minister is not addressing the issue, so allow me to be clear. Under Conservatives, not a single taxpayer dollar would go to subsidize the American EV market, and yet that's precisely what the $2.3 billion subsidy they've just introduced will do. There are not a lot of EVs made in this country. They're made elsewhere, including in the U.S., which is eligible for this $2.3 billion subsidy. Will the minister change course, or will working Canadians be expected to fund the American auto market?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
We all know that the auto workers are building the best cars in the world for the world. But we all know that the auto sector is completely integrated within North America. Is my colleague saying right now, calling for a boycott against American EVs that are made with Canadian parts by Canadian auto workers? Is that what she's suggesting?
That's it.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent Aquaranac. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has announced $2.3 billion in subsidies from Canadian workers for the purchase of EVs. Is the government aware that with this, there are U.S. EVs that will be subsidized? Need I remind the government that that there is a terrible trade war because of Donald Trump, and that to date, this has cost 5,000 jobs. Why subsidize U.S. cars then? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's surprising to finally hear this after 1 year of a trade war denounce tariffs on the Canadian automotive sector. But we have a plan supported by the entire industry, by unions, and by the Premier of Ontario, where this industry is positioned, and by environmentalists. We agree with the fact that we have to invest in electrification of transportation in this sector because we know that globally this is where investment is happening and we are following where the capital is going. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent Aquarin. Mr. Speaker, she forgot a name in the people who agree with this plan? President Trump, because he's going to be benefiting from these subsidies. The reality is that if the minister really wants to help workers, if she really wants to help this industry and help Canadian families to buy a car, why not take our proposal to cutting GST on cars made in Canada? That would be concrete and give results. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're helping already the automotive sector with $3 billion, and we're going to continue to support it. There are 5,000 people in Ontario and elsewhere in Quebec who will be supported, and we agree with the fact that we have to make more investment in transportation electrification because it creates jobs in our province. And my colleague has to understand that the automotive sector in North America is fully integrated. So is he calling for a boycott of EVs made in the U.S.? Is he saying that those who work in the automotive sector for car parts? Inaudible.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, the auto sector is half the size it is today when the Liberals took office. President Trump has launched a sustained and unjustified attack on Canada's auto sector. His stated goal is to take Canadian auto jobs and put them in the U.S. And now the government is going to use taxpayer money to subsidize electric vehicles made outside of Canada. Thousands of these rebate checks will end up in American pockets. Does the minister really believe that we should be using taxpayer money to reward President Trump's behavior?
Yeah, hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, it is shocking that the opposition does not recognize the measures that this government has taken to support the auto sector, to support workers, to make sure that we're investing in national projects while they vote against us every single time. Mr. Speaker, we have an auto strategy, we have a liquidity management fund, we are reducing tariffs, and we are making sure we are building Canada strong. We urge them to get on board.
Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, under this Liberal government, Canadian auto production is down by half. Mass auto layoffs in Oshawa, Brampton, and Ingersoll are devastating our communities. We gave the minister a very reasonable solution to help with auto workers. Under Section 153 of the Income Tax Act, he can bring forward a regulatory change to reduce the mandatory withholding rate on lump sum severances for impacted workers. But the Minister of Finance rejected it. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, I come from a riding and I represent auto workers and the auto sector. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, they want this government to keep doing what we have been doing, which is to support auto workers, support unions, support auto manufacturing, and to ensure that we are together building Canada strong. That's what we do in times of economic stress. We band together, and on this side of the House, we urge them, vote with us, vote for Canada, vote for national projects, and build Canada with us.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance called standing with auto workers political malpractice. It's easy to talk about that here in Ottawa, but try saying that to the worker who lost their job. Say that to the worker who can't feed their family. Say that to the worker who can't pay for their mortgages. Yet this government is sending billions of their tax dollars outside of Canada to fund foreign jobs and foreign projects. Canadian workers feel betrayed. So will the minister just drop the rhetoric, work with us, and stand for Canadian workers?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Breaking news for the opposition. Mr. Speaker, we're in a trade war, and maybe instead of talking down the Canadian economy, talking down workers, they should join us and build it up. We are investing $3 billion in the auto sector. We are backing companies who choose to build here. I was just in Bradford, Ontario, where we invested in Kumi Canada. They employ 280 Canadians, and they support our plan to build in Canada, buy in Canada, and believe in Canada. They ought to try it.
The honourable member for Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry.
The Liberals providing billions in rebates for American-made EVs coming into Canada is anything but elbows up. This at a time when Donald Trump is tariffing every single Canadian auto going into the United States. Furthermore, working-class Canadians are now being forced to subsidize $50,000 cars they can't afford so wealthy people can buy them. Wow. In an affordability crisis, this makes no sense. In a trade war, this makes even less sense. When will the Liberals reverse course on this ridiculous policy that gives American-made EVs a subsidy and leaves Canadian workers paying the bill?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the only party going in reverse is the Conservatives. We're going to move forward. We're going to drive forward by investing in the Canadian auto sector. We have a plan to invest $3 billion in this auto sector. We are making sure that we are building the cars of the future. We're not only building the cars of the future, we're building affordable homes. We're making sure that families can put food on the table. This is called Building Canada. They're blocking all those. Get on board, stop blocking, start building Canada. Join us.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, they're not investing in Canadian auto workers, they're subsidizing Tesla. Canadians are watching our auto sector get hammered by Trump slapping illegal, unjustified tariffs on Canadian-built cars, putting paychecks at risk in Ontario and in Kitchener. Yet while Trump punishes Canadian workers, this government is rewarding the U.S. auto sector. I'm wondering, whose side are they on? Can this government please explain why, at a time when Canadians need action, it is choosing to use taxpayer dollars to subsidize American-made vehicles? Why?
Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have created over 160,000 jobs since September. Wages are rising. Inflation is within target range. Mr. Speaker, we know that certain sectors in the economy are facing impacts from the tariffs, from the trade war. But we have a plan, Mr. Speaker, a plan that invests in workers that's in our budget, Mr. Speaker. That party's voted against it. Unfortunately, they keep blocking the budget, Mr. Speaker. So if that member wants to make a difference, if she wants to help workers, Mr. Speaker, it's important that they pass the budget. Let's go, pass the budget. Let's stay all night, pass the budget.
The Honourable Member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Mr. Speaker, the announcement of our government's new automotive sector marks a turning point for the Canadian automotive sector. We're focusing on what we can control here to bring more clarity to our industry. Can the Minister of Industry explain why we're helping our industry be more resilient and ensure our economic sovereignty? The Honourable Ministry of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie for his excellent work. He's very active in the Automotive Caucus, and he's asking me a question about the automotive strategy. It's an excellent one. It focuses on two objectives. First, production in Canada, and second, electrification, because we believe that's where the industry is heading. And we don't want to be just victims of decisions from the White House. So we're going to be here for our automotive sector in Ontario, but across Quebec as well. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After the Minister has said, give us names, I gave her two this week. For months, 86,000 seniors have been waiting for their pensions and their guaranteed income supplements. And the Minister has said they're modernizing this system, but the cost went from $1.6 billion to $6.6 billion. The money they're spending is Canadian taxpayers' money that's hard-earned. Meanwhile, our seniors are waiting to pay for their rents, groceries. So who is responsible for this financial fiasco? And he's going to stand up and apologize for this. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families. I'll be happy to sit down with the member across the way, but it's not true.
Budget, Mr. Speaker, for this modernization of a 60-year-old system, migrating more than 7.5 million Canadians to this new system. Of course, as we see challenges with specific applications, maybe information is incorrect, maybe they're paper applications, the department is working urgently on those cases. And if any MP here has a constituent who is not receiving their benefits in time and is in urgent need, please reach out to my office. We'd be happy to help. Canadians can also contact Service Canada.
The honourable member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Valentine's Day is fast approaching, but love is clearly not in the air for the Liberals. Just ask the 86,000 retirees who are anything but enamored with the new Coram software, a faulty system that's depriving them of their money every month. Add to that the civil servants who say they hate working with this system. And the worst part is that all Quebecers and Canadians are realizing once again that the Liberals are spending their money recklessly and above all irresponsibly. With a cost overrun of $5 billion, it's ridiculous. Why is it that with the Liberals, it's always taxpayers' money that they're spending without restraint or respect? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have a great deal of gratitude for the workers who are working hard and who are learning quickly on a new system.
Mr. Speaker, that we talk about these civil servants with the respect that they deserve. In fact, at the beginning, of course, it was challenging to learn that system, but these workers have worked extremely hard to get better and more proficient at a brand new system. It's replacing a 60-year-old system, Mr. Speaker. I challenge us all to think back to what a computer system 60 years old might look like, and I'm very proud of the civil servants who've worked so hard.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian forestry industry is under attack again from U.S. tariffs of 45%, and this inaction continues to threaten the livelihoods of our workers. There were lost jobs at the Domtar plant in Baie-Comeau in January. This morning, we've announced job losses in Montreal and La Tuque. When will we get rid of the U.S. tariffs and defend our forestry workers?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the member opposite that while the Conservatives are obstructing our progress, we've proposed $2.5 billion in support from this government to go into the forestry sector. Workers and businesses know American tariffs are what is causing the problem. Do these folks understand it is the tariffs we need to be fighting, not each other, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to choose electric vehicles, but they also want the confidence that they will be able to charge them where they live, work, and travel. This is a critical component of the government's auto strategy. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources tell the House how today's announcement is helping build the charging infrastructure Canadians need while supporting jobs and investment across the country?
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Thank you to the member for Hamilton Centre for the great work you're doing in your riding. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what today's announcement is about. We're investing more than $97 million in 155 clean transportation projects across Canada, including $84 million to install 8,000 EV chargers, helping Canadians choose to drive electric with confidence. This builds on our progress to date and supports our auto strategy by strengthening Canada's charging network, attracting private investment, and keeping good jobs from coast to coast to coast.
The Honourable Member for Caribou Prince George.
On November 25th of 2021, a lone gunman circled the Vanderhoof RCMP detachment, spraying dozens of rounds into the particle board walls, narrowly missing the RCMP members working inside. They thought they were going to die that day. It's a miracle no one was killed. The Liberal government promised they would stand with these members. They promised they would partner with the province and the District of Vanderhoof to build a new detachment. But 5 years later, the memories are still raw. The bullet holes remain, serving as a constant reminder of that horrific day. The province is on board, the District of Vanderhoof is on board, but this government is missing an action. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague from Caribou, Prince George, for this question. And let me also extend my deepest support to the individual RCMP officers who have been impacted. I will work with the Commissioner Duham to ensure that those who require the support, including new facilities, are addressed, Mr. Speaker. The work of the RCMP frontline personnel across Canada is truly inspiring, and I want to thank each and every member for their service to Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The Prime Minister recently urged the global community to stand up to superpower intimidation and called on middle powers to stand together to resist it. The United States has imposed an illegal blockade on Cuba for decades, crippling its economy and causing mass suffering to the Cuban people. Now Donald Trump is cutting off fuel, risking humanitarian disaster. Will the Prime Minister stay true to his words in Davos, uphold independent Canadian foreign policy, and support Cuba in the face of aggressive U.S. imperialism?
Here. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we are deeply concerned by the deteriorating conditions in Cuba. Our consular officials are actively engaged. They stand ready to support Canadians in need. We are also working, Mr. Speaker, with the Cuban authorities and Canadian tourism stakeholders to ensure a timely and an effective response. We understand that aircraft carriers from Canadian airliners will be picking up Canadians. Our top priority will always be the safety and the security of Canadians, and our foreign policy is based on that.
The Honourable Member for Kootenay-Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta's Bill 11 is American-style two-tier medicine. It allows doctors to bill privately while also billing the public system and allows private insurance for medically necessary care. This breaks the promise of Canadian Medicare, creating one system for the wealthy and one where the rest of us are left waiting even longer. The minister said she would look into it, but it's been 2 months and we've heard nothing. Will she stop stalling, enforce the Canada Health Act, and protect Canada's universal health care system?
The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to tell my colleague, yes, to date, we are looking with the legal services at Health Canada what is happening in Alberta, and I'm working closely with my counterpart provincially, and I will come back to them when we have an update as to when this act will be implemented or not. As I've said, to date, I am the guardian of the Public Health Act for Canadians.
I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Charmaine A. Williams, Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunity for Ontario.